All right, cool. Thank you. Well, thanks for the introduction. My name's Chris Allen. I'm the CEO of Brass Monkey. We're a video game company based in Boston. We're making a kind of a next generation game platform. And this is my contact info. Also, the final slide, I'll have that information as well. But I'm going to talk today about technology and how it influences games and what is possible, and in particular with the kind of the game platform or the kind of the game console. And before we start off, I would like to invite you guys to join this little ad hoc network that we set up with your phone. It's called Brass Monkey, and then get the Brass Monkey app for either Android or iPhone, and we can play some games later in the presentation. So you can just go to our website at playbrassmonkey.com or look it up on the Play Store, on Android, or on iOS, in the App Store. So, and a lot like Kevin yesterday, I was going to cover some evolution, except I was going to take a little bit of a different twist, in particular because I saw his presentation. I figured I should change it up a little bit. And so we're going to cover... Oh, no, not this evolution of Steve Jobs, although that's quite fascinating. Steve Jobs' fashion over the years is... I really don't know what happened in 2001. Like, what possessed him to wear black shoes, but, No, what I really want to talk about is the game console and the history of the game console. And, I hope to kind of cover a lot of ground here, harkening back through all of these things, and then ultimately ending up with what we're doing today, which is Brass Monkey. No, of course, that's quite a pompous claim, and I'm not saying that we're going to be the only ones doing this, but I think you guys will follow along as to what I'm talking about. And instead of starting with, video games, I figured it might be interesting to look at like the first game consoles. And how many of you guys have heard of the Mechanical Turk? This is made in the 1780s, actually. This guy, I think his name's Kepler. Oh, what's his name? For accuracy, yeah, Kempelen. Anyway, he basically created this chess game that you could play against, and the Turk would move the pieces, and it was getting people like all riled up and going, "This is amazing! I can't believe that this Turk can play against me. It's all mechanical." And this worked for about 30 years actually before anybody found out that they were actually putting small chess players in the middle of the thing, and that was the kind of the CPU, if you will, for the machine or the AI. It wasn't artificial intelligence; it was just plain old intelligence. But the coolest thing about this though was that people started trying to figure it out. They're like, "How do we make this thing? How do we really make it real?" And that led into some really interesting inventions, one of which is Charles Babbage came up with this thing, which is essentially the computer. In the 1800s, we didn't really have the technology to drive this stuff, but at the same time, Ada Lovelace, she was a woman who was a scientist and looked at what Charles Babbage had designed, or at least conceptually designed, and said, look at what is possible with this. We can actually start creating general programs which can be run, and it doesn't have to just crunch numbers. It could actually do other things. And so she actually ended up writing the first program in the 1850s. And so she is really the mother of computers today. And it took them about 100 years before we had the technology available to actually do it. And people like Turing were able to make an actual computer work based on these guys' invention. So now back to games. Around this same time, Bagatelle was a game that was really popular. This is kind of like the precursor to the pinball. And in fact, there were some kind of pinball machines around. This one was made in the 1700s, late 1700s, and it actually has a little plunger spring loader thing like this, like what we see on a modern pinball machine. This was actually not patented until, I think, the 1880s, actually. And then, I think this was an important thing. And in pinballs really, I think, led directly to video games. And one of the inventions that really changed games and the style of the kind of console game was the coin-op model. And back in the 30s, it was literally a penny arcade because, it would cost a penny to play. And this led to an entire industry, which, of course, is where video games come from, too. Of course, electricity is introduced to pinball machines, and that, made it possible to create bumpers and make things pop off of them. But, I cannot even imagine playing a pinball machine without one of these things, right? It's not going to be that interesting. You pull the plunger and you'll watch the thing go down, and then that's it. Okay, woo! The real interactive part that came about was the flipper, and there's this guy. Anyway, I'm not going to get into the details on this stuff, but suffice it to say that this is really what made this thing take off and made it really interesting. And around the same time, people were, created computers and made it possible to create video games. And this is one of the early games. It's a tic-tac-toe game. This one here is called OXO, a graphical version of tic-tac-toe created by A.S. Douglas in 1952 at the University of Cambridge. And this thing used a cathode ray tube as a visual display contents. And you would actually go head-to-head against a computer. So there was some AI involved. Obviously, tic-tac-toe is not that complicated. Although it did kill the computer in war games. So if you ever watched that movie, that's an important thing to note. It couldn't. And then there's a game, invented by some guys that it was called Tennis for Two, and basically this is one where you can play head-to-head with somebody else, and the inputs for this were like little dials. You'd hit that to angle the tennis ball and stuff. And then Space Wars came out. There's some guys at MIT in our hometown of Boston, or actually it's Cambridge, but right across the river. They came up with this thing, and this was really the first video game that was actually any fun. And believe it or not, Nolan Bushnell, this guy who invented this game, Pong, was really inspired by that thing and decided, well, let's figure out how to make this a commercial success. And so, of course, you guys know Pong. That was the second game because it turns out Space Wars wasn't that interesting to consumers, and this one was. And I don't know how many you guys all know the story, right? And so I'm not going to spend too much time on this, and particularly because I don't have a lot of time. But suffice it to say, this thing took off like crazy. They put it in a bar in Silicon Valley, and they were getting complaints the next day that the thing wasn't working anymore, and they went down there to check it out, and it turned out that the reservoir for all the coins had just filled up, and they couldn't. So it was like this thing was super popular, and they're like, okay, we better manufacture this and make it work all over the place. And then there was a home console version, which you could plug into your TV, and this created a whole revolution. And how many people know this game? All right. You're showing your age, which is awesome. No. I played this game a lot as a kid. This is Combat for the Atari 2600. And then this is the game that really made it take off. Space Invaders, this was a hit in arcades, but home consoles, this is the game that everybody wanted to buy the Atari 2600 so they could play that game. And one of the interesting things about this invention, I think, was the idea of each person having a controller in their hand. Well, a lot of the previous game systems were you had to be on the system and share it with somebody else. I kind of make the analogy of web games that, they split up the keyboard. Like you get WASD and I get the arrow keys, and then that seems kind of kludgy. Anyway, we'll get to that in a little bit. But and then, of course, Nintendo. Everybody knows this game, right? Super Mario Brothers came out with NES. Now let's just burn through these. I'm going to jump way ahead, skip over Genesis and all of this stuff. And this is Gran Turismo that was on the PlayStation, and of course, you get the Xbox. And then, all the game consoles at this point were kind of these idea of a game controller in your hand, and, it's all mashing buttons to be able to control the stuff that's going on the screen. I think one of the next inventions that really made a difference was for this, type of game, the Wii Sports and the Wii. And this was the first time that we were able to use kind of a motion-based system to create gameplay. And this, of course, changed the game designs that were possible, right? You're not going to be able to play the same kind of games. Of course, they did have it so you could shift it around and play like the old NES-style games. But the big innovation here and what everybody caught on to is playing like tennis and playing golf and all kinds of other stuff. So, and then nowadays we have, how many people know this game? This is a game. What is it? Oh, Dance Central. Yeah, exactly. This is made by Harmonix, another company in my hometown. So, and this was a game that you can play using the Kinect. Everybody knows that, right? You don't even need a game controller. And what's interesting is if you look at what's happening with the game industry and the major consoles, they're all talking about the second screen or multi-screens, right? And this is the Wii U. The funny thing about this whole this image here to the, I guess your left, yep, is one that we kind of put together for Brass Monkey, which is our company, and what we do. We turn a smartphone into the game controller, and any screen with a web browser becomes the game console. And this was like early on in our days, and then somebody had sent me a tweet the second they Nintendo announced the Wii U, and said, "Hey, look, doesn't this look familiar?" And what's really cool about this is the rest of the game industry is kind of catching up to what we were thinking of quite a while ago. And the idea is that you have these devices that you carry around with you, like this, and you can play games using that as a controller. So I just want to quickly, if some of you guys download the app at all out there. All right, let's see if we can get some games going here. If it'll let me flip.
Just remind us where they get just Brass Monkey app.
Yeah, it's on the Play Store or App Store, depends. It's a free app. I'm not going to have you guys be charged for it or anything terrible like that. So I'll just show you the experience. So it's just running in a web browser, right? We have, and I have an app here. Let me just make sure I'm connected to the right network because it tends to knock me off of that. Can we show the iPhone up here as well? Also notice that, well, you didn't see it. It was pink up in the left corner. I had opened several instances. But you'll see it. Okay, so other people have connected. So I'm going to connect as well. Assuming, there it goes. And now I have the game controller. If everybody could stop moving for a second. I could actually, select this. And let's just play Super Drill Panic real quick. This is a single-person game, so it's going to be me who gets to play it. Sorry, guys. Just to kind of give you guys an idea of what the game controller looks like. So each game can get a custom controller. Let me see if I can move the game over just a tad bit so we can see it at the same time. Oh, thank you for quitting my game. Let's try that again. Yeah, this one. This is a game made by a Dutch developer called Orange Pixel. He does all these really cool kind of retro games, which is really becoming popular on our system. All right, so now I have the right button I can hit here, and I can go left. And I avoid getting hit by this big boulder. All right, so you get the idea here, right? That each game is able to do kind of a different control system. If we load up, well, let's get a lot of people playing golf here. Yeah, this one here. All right. How many people connected? Just raise your hand if you've actually. Oh boy, we have quite a few here. All right. We'll see how many people are on this. Whoops. I think we're all fighting over it. Oh, you know what happened? I get it. So when I get to this screen, this is a usability problem when we have this many players on at once. You have to select who's playing each player, so it may just be a couple of us. So either way. Let's let this load up, and then let's... All right, I think you guys get the idea. I'm not going to fight over it too much. Actually, if everybody could close their Brass Monkey app, and we'll have... I didn't anticipate that this would be so popular, so it's all good. Somebody selected developers. Thank you for doing that. We'll talk about that later. Let's just try and play. Who has an Android device that got the Brass Monkey app? Anybody here? All right, you, sir. Were you able to connect?
I think so.
Okay, cool. The orange one now. All right, cool. You're connected? All right. So we could take this iPhone off of there. I don't want to block up the screen too much. Let this one load. And right now, I guess while this is loading, it'd be a good time to ask any questions about what I'm doing. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, how big are the games? I mean, just in terms of file size.
Yeah, the games, the question was how big are the games, and it really depends on the game. As you saw that HTML5 game, the Super Drill Panic was very small and loaded very quickly. That's because it's just pretty simple graphics and not much there. Each of the games are made in either HTML5, Flash, or Unity. This is actually a Unity game, so it's leveraging the Unity plugin for the browser. And it's, some of these games can be pretty hefty. This has got a lot of 3D environments and stuff, so it really depends on that. Yep. This thing is, our internet here is not the fastest. I don't know if anybody noticed that. But anybody else have another question in the meantime? All right, cool. Well, I just want to quickly show this game, and then we'll move right along. How much time do I have, by the way? Does anybody know? A few minutes. I like it. All right, well, let's talk. All right, cool. All right, somebody with a... you didn't get connected. Somebody with a Apple, because we're both Apples. All right, I'm playing against somebody. I don't know who it is. All right, you can see that you can play multiplayer games, kind of races like this. We can do all kinds of stuff. So anyway, the cool thing is this is enabling all kinds of interesting games because you can put a private screen here. You can do lots of interesting things that which we can get into here in a second. So let's go back to my presentation. Thanks, guys, for downloading the app, by the way. It means a lot to us. So I just wanted to quickly talk about disruptive technologies, which I think the iPhone was certainly a disruptive technology. It came along and kind of did the thing of like wiping out like a whole series of other things, right? Some of the things it killed off, you can think of it as very much like the light bulb. When this thing came out, it was like, I think lantern sales went way down, gas-fired lanterns and all that, and candles. And we can see the same thing with, handheld games. Like these things are kind of antiques at this point. And, I really like this image because it shows like just about everything that the iPhone or a modern smartphone can do today. We have an MP3 player. Those are kind of pointless nowadays. A digital camera. Anybody heard of those? And then, of course, the phone itself, and then the game console. And the game console part is where I think what we're doing. And I know James yesterday he presented to the Dragons, and he's working on a very similar thing, which I think is very cool. And what typically happens, this is kind of based on Clay Christensen's book, The Innovator's Dilemma. It's a great little book. It's a business book, but it really talks about disruptive technologies. And so the number 3 up there, that's the kind of established console makers today, as I see it. And then, actually number 3 is kind of the threshold of performance demand. At some point, people are saying, yeah, performance is great, it's acceptable. And then consoles have surpassed that. The experience you get on a game console and the graphics and everything are really superb. But what we're seeing with web games and the web becoming a console is that they're quickly catching up to what is possible. And so you'll see that this is this line that we see. And I think what's going to happen is that the browser itself is going to be just as powerful as any game console. And that eventually nobody's going to need to download anything, or not download, but actually buy hardware to do this stuff. It's just going to be part of your TV, or it's going to be part of any screen that you actually connect to in the future. And of course, you know, the modern smartphone itself is incredibly powerful. I mean, this thing is like, I don't even know how much more powerful than that it is than that computer right there. And it's tiny, and they're only getting faster and faster. So quickly, what is Brass Monkey? I know some of you have already experienced it, but it's an app for iOS or Android. It turns your phone into the game controller, and then our browser, your browser on pretty much any screen can become the game console. And so you just go to playbrassmonkey.com, and you can open it up and start playing games on our system. We do have kind of an in-app. Well, first of all, we do have free SDKs for developers for HTML5, Flash, and Unity. And developers can publish games on our system by submitting them to us. And then we have a kind of a coin system, which kind of looks like this. You know, you can buy coins and then use them for purchasing games. So it's almost like the old coin op model, where you could like play a game for a session, or you can buy it outright. And then we're also enabling, in the next version of it, people to buy in-app purchases or in-game purchases. So you can upgrade your weapons, or create new skins for your avatar and all kinds of stuff like that. And we're exposing these APIs for developers to be able to monetize their web-based games in really interesting ways. So how does it work? Well, it works over a Wi-Fi network. That's why I asked you to join the ad hoc network we created. And we have a patented technology that allows us to not have you install anything in particular on your browser. The only exception to that is if it's a Unity game and you need a Unity plugin. But otherwise, native HTML5 or a Flash plugin will work as well. And the way we do it is we route the IP addresses of that network up to a server, and then the game makes a request to the server and says, give me a list of all the available devices on this network. And then the browser actually makes a request to the phone, and the phone is basically like a socket server at that point, and it's sending data back and forth. What I think is really cool about this is the possibilities of games and what kind of things we can do with it. So, kind of things like asymmetric gameplay, where one person is the driver and the other players on a system are shooters. I think that would be a really kind of fun type of game to do. Also, this was a really fun concept that our CTO came up with, which is like a skateboarding or snowboarding, surfing game where you can use your phone like this, and use an accelerometer, but then maybe this is like a shove it or kickflip stun like that or whatever. There's all kinds of cool stuff that can be done with this. And then in our next, in a couple of versions out, we're actually going to be adding camera access and microphone, where you can imagine doing things like karaoke games and augmented reality, just like the guys were talking about the last thing. Imagine, so now instead of having the marker or whatever that triggers the experience being in the real-world environment, maybe it's just on the larger screen, and you can actually shine your camera through to that and create all kinds of cool stuff. So I would encourage you to think different, think of all different kinds of ideas. And, for those of you who are game developers, we have free SDKs, and we'd love you to get in on our system. I think it's really important to time when you kind of get on a platform the right way. And, guys like Angry Birds would have never succeeded on the established platforms of today. And likewise, getting in on iOS today is really tough. So, we think this is a tremendous opportunity for game developers to kind of come in and create games while this is really new and we don't have that many up there. So, also, I want to do a quick plug. We have a Kickstarter project up. We launched it a couple of days ago. And what we're doing is providing for role-playing games, or like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff, a way to, instead of having a game mat on your table where it's pretty cluttered, you can just actually play it using your phones to actually move the pieces around and keep track of the whole game board experience. There's a video up about it, and I would encourage you to definitely donate to us. We would really appreciate it. I think we're at about 16% funded at this point. So, anyway, thank you. If you guys have any questions, I'd love to answer them, assuming I still have a little bit of time.